Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and happy hump day. I have a special guest, Silent Chronicle, who actually did the art for the distributing this, and Todd Lewis from the Praise of Folly podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm kind of nervous, but other than that, I'm also excited. You?
Ooh, why are you nervous? I don't bite. Just yeah. So so hmm. so how do you feel like how your interview went with Todd Lewis a couple weeks ago? Anyway, like how what do you guys discuss? I watched like about the last 30 minutes of it.
Oh, it was just about my interests and topics that I was interested in discussing. Um, how I felt the interview went. It went pretty well. Again, very nervous because I'm not used to talking online. Most of the talks that I do get into related to subjects that I'm interested in are with my friends, and given the climate of YouTube debates and just any sort of debate in which everyone has a vested interest in sharing what they know. Um, Given how that usually goes, that gave me some idea of like the worst case scenario, what to expect. Uh, but other than that, I think it went well.
Okay. It seemed like your interest mostly relies in cultural stuff than hard politics. That seemed like what I noticed in that interview with Todd you had. Just is that like a correct assessment
On the surface,
of you?
well, on yes, it's more into the cultural significance that our social relations, including politics, has. I see politics as merely the vehicle in which culture evolves, but politics, what it normally does, at least my view of it, is it allows for, say, the external environment, much like our roads or our schools or those public institutions like businesses. It affects them, and through them, that affects the culture. I don't see it as that. I don't see it as that effective as a means for influencing and evolving culture. I see it just as a means of evolving the environment in which our culture evolves.
Okay. You also discussed a bit about pop culture, and I kind of like your take on Star Wars: The Last Jedi in that interview because it's a terrible movie, but just it's just you seem to be also interested in that too, like just generally just pop culture stuff and just giving your take, your own philosophy, your own brand of philosophy into it. Like you said before we started this, that you like to research things and forming your own conclusions. Like, how do you feel where pop culture is heading towards? Like,
On the surface, it's well, the more and more I get into it, the more chaotic I understand that it is. And just through my own insights into history, my history of looking up history, I keep coming to the same conclusion that when you're in the nexus or when you're within a culture and you're seeing it evolve, it appears so much more chaotic than what you'd get from a history book. So, like the experiences of like reading about the civil rights movement to being alive in this new, I guess, I don't even know what to call it, I guess social justice or economic shift. It's somewhat parallel. Everyone wants to like draw a parallel between the two, but like seeing it happen in a history book and then living it are two completely different things. As for like our entertainment, right now it's pretty crap, but I happen to be a member of like a few communities which give me hope that there will be a revival
Just this decline to the tank. This decline seems like history goes through cycles or progression. Well, I don't know which, to be honest. I don't know which side I'm on, but it seems like these things tend to evolve and tend to have and tends to go back 3 steps. It's just sort of odd how things sort of just play out over a period of time. It's like you have arguments whether history is taking a more evolutionary course or history in itself is fragile, go through these cycles, or
Mm-hmm.
um, or is just history is just you can't really predict anything about history, but you can just learn lessons from history.
Well, if you look really, really closely, you can see a bit of an undercurrent of a pattern. For instance, if you look, let's see, in the spiritual traditions and the religious traditions, you know how atheists like to go on about how, well, if every single one of these religions, they all have the same pattern. So these religions must be crap. It's the same old story told and told again. And they use that to dismiss
That's not
the validity
by the
of
way.
religion. Huh?
Just a joke about them.
Yeah. So they'll use
Keep
the
up.
similarities. Yeah, they'll use the similarities between religions to discredit them. When for someone like me or anyone who's looking for actual validity, it would be wiser to look at the common threads to show that, okay, you don't pay attention to all the things that the religions disagree about. Because usually what happens with the truth, as has been showcased by science, is that it's repeatable. No matter, no matter, no matter, no matter how you do the experiment, it's repeatable. I don't think those are the proper words to use. um, but you notice like repetition right over there, and you'll know that like say throughout history, every movement that succeeded against the status quo for that time ends up getting somewhat corrupted with the need to be and the need for it to evolve even more becomes apparent or purified. Uh, you'll see that with the Romans versus the first Christians, Catholics versus the Protestants, Protestants with the atheists, atheists with the spiritualist. You'll see this in terms of groups, say with slavery, how that's progressed from. Well, I don't know too much about slave revolts or the different types of slavery, but I do know that we've gone from say, a completely tribal system where everyone was out for everyone's blood to a much more structured system, which was a bit more, let's see, rigid, but a lot safer than when we had warlords running about enslaving people or just flat out genociding them. Then we went into from the rigid authoritarian kind of church-based civilizations. We've got to industrial civilizations in which you've got the robber barons to pretty much now where capitalism is peaked and its problems are starting to show out. And then we're becoming a bit more socialist, and that's shown its flaws and limitations. So, yeah, history and the real world is just, it's constantly this journey. Like you watch a movie and you'll see the protagonist, they have to deal with the status quo, have to change the status quo. And then the sequels, if like the best sequels are usually when the hero set up a new status quo and problems within that status quo starts to show. Something I wish the new Star Wars trilogy did, instead of focusing on the Empire coming back and now we have the same story going into the Republic, kind of seeing, okay, the empire, the new order, is trying to corrupt the republic from the inside, and it's up to the new protagonist to stop that spread of corruption. You know, because you had the prequels, which started with there's a republic and it's being corrupted from the inside by the very people using it, and then it falls. And then the empire rises up, and the rebels have to go out and destroy the figureheads of the empire and establish a republic. They could have gone with the republic either directly after or somewhat in the future, where seeds of corruption are being sown within it, and you also have the new order rising up, and everyone's trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to stop an enemy that's both within us and without? And then trying to prevent the same thing that happened in the prequels from happening in the sequel. How we can
Okay. This seems fair. Have you read like any particular authors or political commentators, like for example, Thomas Sowell or Walter Williams? Those well, rather well-known conservative figures. Like,
let's
have you read
see.
any political philosophers that inspire you in particular?
Marcus Aurelius, although he's more of a Stoic philosopher, but he's well known for his journal, which showed him living his life in Stoicism. That's influenced me a lot. There's Tyler
This
Cohen.
dead air is not helping me. I just need you to keep on talking.
Okay. There's Tyler Cohen, who is an economist. I read his book, The End of Mediocrity, and that gave me a good picture of the situation where we're in now. A lot of my research has been done through YouTube videos or watching documentaries and then just sitting down and trying to figure out where everything kind of blends together, and then looking at that and seeing how everyone else lived their lives. I just recently got done reading The Undiscovered Unconscious by Carl Jung. I'll need to read that again because it plays into pretty much the whole dichotomy between those who rule and those who are ruled, and how people tend to not relate so well with themselves, as well as how there are a lot of forces we do not take into consideration when it comes to our actions and how we behave in our waking moments. And let's see. Recently, I haven't read anything other than those books. I do have White Liberals and Black Rednecks by Thomas Sowell. That's a book I do intend to get into. Yeah, he was a Swedish psychologist. He was pretty much active in World War II. He ran a psych profile on Hitler, and his psychological analyses on Hitler were very key to.
Okay. Do you have any criticisms or
Hmm? Hello?
wait, so wait, Carl Jung wrote a psychoanalysis on Hitler?
Yeah.
And then
He gave reports to the Allies during the war.
Who was the guy you mentioned? The Swedish psychologist. What's his name again?
Carl Jung. If you follow Jordan B. Peterson, he references him a lot. Hello?
Come on. What's going on?
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Maybe I should. Maybe I should look at Jordan. Yeah, maybe I should look at Jordan B. Peterson's.
Yeah, his lectures are really good.
Yeah, I probably should follow his reading list then. Reading list.
Yeah. I was actually learned more about that through just watching his lectures. He has a series on the Bible. Hello?
Hello? Sorry. Technical difficulties on my end.
Oh, okay. Had my heart racing.
Yeah, sorry. I did not hear what you just said about Carl Jung.
Okay, so yeah, I watched a lot of Jordan B. Peterson's lectures, and I learned about the whole World War II thing, Carl Jung's involvement through listening to his lectures. I don't know the exact video, but he has a channel on YouTube, which if you just go in and look up Jordan B. Peterson, you're bound to stumble upon his whole thing on Jung. Jordan B. Peterson is a real big fan of Carl Jung, given the amount of time he spends talking about him.
Just anything of note from Carl Jung's psychoanalysis of Hitler? Like anything interesting about his personality, his habits, his thinking?
Well, I mean, I have my own insights about how Hitler thought, and that influenced me and how I behave in terms of this whole culture war. As for Carl Jung's own analyses, I forget mainly because I'd never read any of his reports on Hitler, but he did have a few insights that I'm sure he carried into his essays, some of which are in the book that I just mentioned, The Undiscovered Self. Pretty much how the leader, someone who leads the movement, ends up being controlled by his followers just as much as those followers end up being controlled by him. It's this sort of a paradox. You'd think the people in power have all this power to be themselves and do whatever they want, but that's not at all the case. And you can see that with just how, well, anyone in a political position behaves, how they have to make sure that their public image isn't marred.
What's your own insights about Hitler?
Well, for one, I don't think he was as bad as people make him out to be.
That's a controversial opinion. Are you trying to get me suspended from YouTube now?
I know I tend to pick the controversial opinions, but I only say that because I am a very introspective individual. I tend to spend most of my hours in the day just thinking about myself and going over how I react with things, and also taking into observations about how people react to each other and to causes they may agree with or don't agree with, and how where everyone that has like some special crusade to save the world, there's like 15 people out there who can tell that the person is acting pretty villainous. And the person who's going out on righteous crusade is completely unaware that what they're doing is bad. Or if they are aware that what they're doing is bad, they'll have some sort of justification or excuse as to why that's permissible, for them at least. So that's where I say I'm coming from, in terms of where I don't think Hitler was as bad as a person as people like to say. Mainly from the whole idea, it's mainly from just the observation I made through just being alive, that we tend to try to give ourselves the best image of ourselves as possible. This is known as self-delusion. And in order to keep that up, we tend to look at other people who we may not agree with or we view as completely different than ourselves as either inferior or wrong. And then we also have to take into context what Hitler was going through. He was a World War I veteran who got kicked out of art school and was in the midst of the biggest depression that the world has ever seen until Venezuela. Not only that, but there were people, a certain class of people, who at least appeared to be doing better than the native Germans. So we can go ahead and use a parallel with the Native Americans and how they feel with the Europeans living in the United States. Now imagine there was a war with the Native Americans had with the world. And they lost that war, and they were told they had to pay for that war, which is what Germany was doing after World War I. Then there's also the whole idea that, during that time, there are a bunch of people bringing out propaganda on how evil the Jews were. And again, Hitler was poor, destitute, on the streets. He's just as impressionable as anyone else was. So he took to that as well. And not only that, but the German consensus, they needed someone to blame to feel better about themselves. And France and Britain, they weren't peaches. They put this on Germany, even though they had committed the same sort of crimes against Germans. Everyone was using the gases. The only reason why Germany was pretty much given blame for the war was because they lost. And that was due to the loss of morale because the Americans came in. Other factors, but this is the history that I remember. And then you have to take into account that once Hitler was in power, he was beholden to the thoughts and opinions of the people beneath him, and he had already surrounded himself with people who had similar ideas, if not worse ideas, for what he was doing and how to go about it. Hitler wasn't really the architect of the final solution. It was someone else. I forget who it was, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find out who it was. I do know he led the SS.
Was it Goring?
Or was in the SS. It may have been Goring.
No, not
I'm
Goring.
not gonna.
I mean Himmler.
Himmler. Likely. It was likely Himmler. But yeah, I don't condone any of Hitler's actions. And I'm not going to say the guy was like a saint and did everything right. But when you're within the context of one's culture and the people around them and what you're surrounded with, yeah, I'm not surprised Hitler became what he became and did what he did. And I don't think it's fair for us to be going out and treating Hitler as if he's the embodiment of evil just so we can feel better with ourselves. I mean, that sort of logic is leading to people beating the heck out of each other with bike locks, is leading to people going out and deciding that they can be disrespectful to someone with a different political opinion and going even further and further into extreme ideas and going with that idea that, equality under any means necessary, or bringing someone down just to bring someone up, and then pretending like, oh, well, it's okay because we were oppressed. The Germans were oppressed. Is what led them to, they were oppressed. They felt they were oppressed, which led them to oppress someone else. It was that old mentality, you did something bad to me. I'm going to do something twice as bad to you.
Well, my take on Hitler is he was a really, really, uh, for Hitler, I think he didn't have much of a personality, to be honest. Unless you consider methamphetamine, being high on methamphetamine and amphetamines to be a personality. But hey, he was always on the move.
I don't think he was.
That was kind of joking there.
I don't think he was.
You roboted out. Hello?
Oh no, I've seen. Oh, okay, full motion machine. Oh, your take on? Yeah,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Hello?
Listen, on a serious
Okay.
note, I think given his actions, he was definitely an idealist, a romantic at the end of it. But just you have to be kind of demonic to commit the actions he did. Like he wanted to start East Europe with the vis-a-vis hunger plan. Which actually probably will kill more people than the USSR ever could in within 20 years after Stalin. But just he was a just generally Nazism was a destructive force of history, and may we never see a force like that ever again. That's why we see people sort of just use that bludgeoning tool thing that you're a Nazi, you're the embodiment of the evil kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
oftentimes people need the enemy to destroy. You ever heard the friend enemy distinction that was deposited by, well, ironically by this Nazi Carl Schmitt? You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. The friend and enemy distinction basically deposit is basically the root of most of all politics that you're always going to need an enemy. You're always going to need an enemy to destroy. It's more of a criticism of Immanuel Kant's political theories at the time. Carl Schmitt is a very interesting fellow, but his he's getting more popular nowadays, but his criticism of liberalisms and his constitutional theory is quite interesting. I recommend him, especially the concept of the political and his work of the and his works on the Weimar Republic. Just
Carl
this
Schmidt?
huh?
Is it Carl Schmidt?
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to make sure. Made a note of it.
yeah. Just any okay. Back on more pop culture stuff. Like, you have any
Mhm.
like really hot takes on Star Wars and where the franchise is heading towards?
Um, I despise what they did to Finn. I despise what they did to Captain Phasma, and I despise how they're parroting Rey. And I despise the spirit behind the whole Star Wars thing.
Just
It's disgusting.
just in the Last Jedi, they tried to push that. They tried to make it was basically trying to criticize tradition, right? Like with Luke trying to burn the thing. Well, Yoda tried to burn the temple. Well, not the temple, but the tree with the end.
The Jedi. Let's see, the Jedi books. I forget
Yeah,
what they're called, but yeah,
and you have what's his name? What's his Kylo trying to relive or try to be the next Dark Vader, but that's not going to happen.
we
And you
gotta
have
destroy the past.
and you have Luke who is afraid of who's essentially became a coward and is actually afraid of him of his past, but he was able to confront it like it's just a message of just moving forward. But that's not the message of Star Wars overall. Like they tried to reinvent the series, but Star Wars always been like a classic good versus evil. And you have these complexities within these stories. What the prequel trilogy tried to do is that shows the fall of Darth Vader. You know, they did it in a questionable manner, but it did get the story out. Like just sure this fall of a relatively good person. Well, not really. He wasn't really a good person to begin with.
Well, the idea behind Anakin was that he was supposed to be seen as some sort of messiah within the Jedi religion. But within this messiah, there was a seed of darkness that was watered throughout the trilogy. And if you read some of the books, it kind of helps flesh it out a bit more. Heck, if you watch the Clone Wars and you see his relationship with Palpatine, you'll see how Anakin was being groomed on the dark side, even as he trained with the Jedi. And so what they were trying to do, and here's the thing, it's really, really subtle. Like on the surface, it's just like, oh, a good man turns bad. But if you look a bit deeper, it's how evil looks to corrupt even the most idealistic and well-intentioned people who have it in their hearts to make things better. And that is what Palpatine was doing to Anakin throughout the trilogy.
Like, but Last Jedi is more like saying is, I think it just overall, I think it was just trying to say is tradition's bad, conservatism's bad. You have to look. It's just like it's trying to promote a progressive message, like trying to say that these traditions are holding us back, and we need to keep on moving forward into the future. That Rey and Kylo represent this progression into the future. Like this is supposedly going to be the last. The sequel trilogy is supposedly going to be the last. It's going to stop focusing on the Skywalker saga after the last film, Episode 9. Don't know what it's called now. It's not doing a good job of it. The script was sloppy. The pacing was sloppy. Everything was that movie was just like really. It was just sort of weird. Just felt all uneven. Like they tried to do all these storylines at once, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Well, I mean, it made for really, really, really good comedy. However, yeah. However, like, I don't think it was so much of a stab against conservatism.
It's granted, knowing Hollywood is kind of is.
Oh man, I can get into Hollywood. I live in California and just Hollywood. So my views on progressivism and conservatism are kind of mixed. Because on one hand, I understand that there are values within traditions that need to be respected. And surprise, surprise, to a lot of progressives, what they don't understand is a lot of things we take for tradition were progressive in the time that they were established.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's in anyone's place to try to completely destroy and absolve like the values and things that have worked. The best idea for moving forward isn't to completely throw away tradition or throw away those heartfelt values that tradition tries to hearken to. Is to look at what's within the status quo works, keep with that, and then see what doesn't work, shed that off, and find new creative ideas to elevate what does work into a new milieu or place. It's like, you have an old boat and some of the wood has rotted and it wasn't the best kind of wood to put in the hull, but it was what was available at that time. Instead of throwing out the complete ship and destroying the frame because the frame works, you take the planks on the hull and you replace them with something better. And as the ship continues along its journey, you maintain the ship. You don't try to destroy the ship and then, make a completely different raft if you can help it. Which is what I see this. Yeah, just what I see this fight as. You have those who want to say, no, we will keep using the same wood. The same wood has worked. We will keep the entire ship, even though it's rotting away. Then you have one other side that goes, no, we need to burn the entire ship because they have a better ship out there that works better. And it's no. The frame is good. We need to look at what works, what's good, what everyone is comfortable with, what everyone can agree on that works, that gets us through. Then we need to take the planks that are rotting, what isn't working, and we need to peel those off and replace them with a new wood, one that is compatible with the frame.
Yeah. It's just want to talk about Hollywood and where and why it should burn down, or you want to talk about something else?
Well, I mean, I'm not one for burning down anything if I could help it.
Well, yeah, Hollywood. You said you live in California. Like, do you live in Los Angeles or?
I live in the county of Los Angeles. City, I'm not going to say exactly where.
You shouldn't say it. I probably shouldn't ask you that, but just yeah. So what's been going? So how many, like, from your own like personal life, like how many people you see try to make it in Hollywood but ended up worse off? You ever seen something like that? Or
I tend to pay more attention to myself than the people around me.
that's probably a smart move. That's probably a wise thing to do overall.
Yeah. So I wouldn't know. Again, I'm trying to go into writing and drawing, but it's mainly because of my love for the metaphysical that I try to use it as a vehicle to pretty much, I guess, plant my insights, share them.
Just yeah. But overall, what's your take on Hollywood and where the film industry's been going to? Like, you think it's like just slowly, just do you think it's just already a corpse already, and or it needs to be like rebuilt from the ashes or something like that?
I think people are more too worried about how things look like on the outside. And when they do focus on emotional investment, they try to go and do it in the quickest and dirtiest way possible. You can see this with Star Wars. There's so much flash and pizzazz and easy emotional hooks shot one after the other that gets people like enraptured and so invested in trying to defend the film, even though it's not all that good when you look at it from a much more detached and reasoning standpoint. Like, you can still keep your heart open and say, well, yeah, I like the feeling that comes along and how I emotionally get invested with this and this, but there's no real connection between characters. There's no real expansion on the world. It's just there's nothing that really holds you into the heart of the story without having to be painted in big, bold capital letters, as in, this is what the story's about. And it doesn't leave enough time for you to sit back and kind of think about it and say, okay, what can I expand on what this story told me? And I don't think it's just Hollywood as a whole that has this problem. I think this is just the problem with entertainment. There's so much breadth in what you're getting that there's no time to examine like the depth. You can play one example of like a story that I like and a game that I like is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. You can play through that game, sit back and like find so many nuggets of wisdom um, that it is mind blowing. And you don't even have to look for the nuggets of wisdom. You could just enjoy the game, and that game has so much depth. It shows you so much without having to be so, I guess, action packed and cheesy.
Yeah. So, yeah. Just any takes on the current political climate with Donald Trump and more recently the Mueller report and its revelations? Like, you have any takes on the political landscape that was set by 2016? Just
Oh, ho, 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 ho. I have a lot of takes, and it goes back even further into 2016. It actually goes back to 2012.
okay, lay them out.
Okay. So, my biggest insight for the whole politics and Donald Trump is this has been an escalation for as much long as I've been aware. I can say this about Donald Trump. He's doing a good job with distracting liberals. Something I'm got me very, very upset in terms of the Donald Trump Trump mania that's going on. As for 2012, you'll have back in 2012, there was a lot on the fringe of conservatives and maybe even around some moderate conservatives with their angst with Obama. And I predicted that things would get about as bad as they did in 2016 with my friends about just the amount of disrespect Obama was getting. Now, I don't really consider myself as much a supporter of one particular president, but more of I respect the office. Therefore, anything I do say will, or any criticism.
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Okay, something went wrong. Something really went wrong. Hello? Hello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Hello? I can barely hear you.
Okay, let me check my sound. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just I can barely hear you. Just oh my god.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my input.
Yes.
Okay, is this better?
No.
No.
Mm.
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, what you were saying?
Let's see. I was on about. We had shifted from entertainment, right? Or were we still on that? No,
Uh,
yeah, we shifted into entertainment onto politics and my insights on 2012 up to this year.
yes.
So yeah, it was pretty much an escalation, and I see this from a lot of videos from liberals who go into how Obama was pretty much obstructed at every term. They mis they appropriate it to just racism. And while I can't deny maybe it may be racism, I generally don't like to put racism on the table because again, everyone's a little bit racist, especially when you're especially when you're first maturing, you tend to be more inclined towards those who look and behave like you. So I believe the whole issue with Obama had more to do with the fact that he was a Democrat and his policies were really, really, far-reaching. Because Bush had similar policies, especially with his "No Child Left Behind" idea, that if were supported by a Democratic president, probably would have met with the same type of opposition. So you got people upset with Obama. Um,
how he was treated, going out of their way in 2016 to pretty much show the Republicans just how, well, pissed off they were with the fact that they were being obstructionist. Not only that, but you also have the social pressures from, I guess, women and non-heterosexuals going out and being upset for the fact that they've been repressed for, I'd say, at least a millennia. So there's a lot going on there too. However, when you take all that anger and all that rage, whether it's justified or not, and you try to put it on people, especially people who have the ability to defend themselves, and there are more of, Donald Trump was a bit inevitable. And even if Hillary Clinton won, the opposition towards her and any of her social, what would it be called? Her social moves, changing the social fabric, it would have had a lot of stiff opposition. The alt-right would have grown even more. And even then, oh man, the alt-right gained so much strength from the opposition of the perceived Nazis. I'm sorry, wrong time to use air quotes, perceived Nazis, which helped Richard Spencer to no end, especially when he got punched. Again, resisting people because they look or think differently than you, it doesn't really help you look like the, at least the good guy you want everyone to perceive you as. I mean, look how much crap Christians get about the Crusades, or how much crap Muslims get about jihadis. It's usually the people who push the hardest for their agenda, and it is an agenda, everyone has an agenda, that end up making the moderates and anyone else who might want to help them look bad or feel alienated.
Just, you ever heard of the bell curve, right?
Yes.
Okay. I take the view that this been going on for nearly since the 90s, about nearly 20 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
You have the rise of you have the economy going to a more informational, more software, computer based. Like we're heading to a post-industrial age where manufacturing jobs will become irrelevant, essentially, for highly advanced economies like the United States and Europe and Japan, etc. And you kind of have this for a very long time. The manufacturing sector provided jobs for average Americans, average white American, Black Americans, and that sort of just disappeared. That's why people are kind of angry about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see the flyover states, the red states, the favoring protectionist policies, trade policies.
Mm-hmm.
That's one reason why Donald Trump did so well in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan, those Dust Belt states. It's important for people to have this social guarantee that they're going to be taken care of within their society. And for a very long time, at least in America, the manufacturing base, the industrial base did take care of that. But now the industrial base is slowly streaking. We've seen deindustrialization is having like these profound social consequences. That's why you see the Andrew Yang with his promotion of the universal basic income, and that's why you see That's why you see people who advocating for more expansion of welfare state policies or these job guarantee programs forever.
Mm-hmm.
For the rise of Donald Trump, this sort of just in this inequality, this new populism, what's going to happen? Like this exacerbated with 2008 with the housing crisis, the housing recession. But but something went wrong. in these eyes of these political theorists in their ivory towers that this was going to slant America left wing more left wing populism, but now we got this right wing populism, and
Oh
this
yeah, that has more to do with the social consequences, at least the perceived ones, than it does with the economic ones.
yeah
Um, a lot of a lot of the people who follow social justice crowd don't get, and I don't see them as bad people. I tend to agree with a lot of their a lot of what they have to say. But what they don't get is that the majority of people they haven't they haven't gotten to the they haven't developed to the point where they can see things as relative as, say, your standard progressive. There's also the fact that people take time to change and the environment takes time to change. And when you push social changes on people who don't understand and are unwilling to understand, it results in a backlash. Not only that, but your own methodology, your own rhetoric that's usually used to, say, get those people who would agree with you, um, despite your, I guess, social opinions, it opens them up for your opposition, which is what the Republican Party is doing right now. They're trying to push more measures to help working people using their own philosophy for how one should behave in a society, which is you work throughout the day, you get your stipend or you get your earnings, and you're able to, spend those earnings. At least this is my view of the Republican view. I mean, there's more to it, of course, like Reaganomics, which I don't agree with at all. um, but I have my own reasons for not agreeing with trickle down theory, and it has more to do with the fact you don't get rich by spending money. You get rich by spending money wisely, and it doesn't have anything to do with spending money on a ton of goods that the, say, working class makes. Has more to do with the fact that you're spending money, one, on your investments, your banking, um, your employees to some extent. And then there's also corporate culture, which is very, very corrupt in that they've decided to shortcut the whole idea behind, well, profit making, which is instead of focusing on making like an awesome product, they're focusing on getting the most return in the quickest manner possible. Like with loot boxes. Are you there?
yes I am.
Okay.
Didn't you say the time that your views on economics is more speculative than like let's say a professional economist who tend to have these general rules of thumbs?
Yeah, it's pretty much based upon observation and consistent observation on what goes on, as well as listening to the opinions of people who do supply a commentary. Some of those who know a great deal more about economics than I do. Some who only have a general view.
Yes. Thing about economics is you are never sure that you're 100% correct about anything.
But that's life.
But with some things, you just know you're right, you know you're probably wrong, but hey, you know you're right. We
Yeah,
call that
that's
pride.
math.
Uh, Math? I thought it was pride. Maybe you're right. I could be wrong.
I mean, in some cases, it is pride when you're 100 to 110% right. Sure that you're right about a thing. The thing is, with anything, like, you can have pretty much a framework set and it makes sense logically and everything points to it being right. and then something comes along and it completely destroys that framework, and you have to, reorganize that framework and go, okay, so it didn't work that way, but it was mostly correct. But then if I actually pay attention to this thing and add that in, then I get an even better picture of how reality works.
Well, then we'd be all. I think we'd be all in a utopia now, if that works. That's not how that's not how ideas or progress works. Hey, most oftentimes things usually happen by accident. But
Yeah.
people need to understand that, like, life is more unpredictable than we like to think. But we like to believe we control things, but in reality, we're probably a speck of dust in the grander scheme of a universe or a hateful God. I don't hate God, but hey, I'm just trying to be dramatic here.
No, my views on God are, well, let's just say I feel that life itself is more of a puppet show than we actually credit it.
Are you agnostic?
No, I'm not agnostic.
So you believe there is a God?
Oh, I don't believe there's a God.
Oh. Okay.
No, I'm not an atheist.
What
I don't
are
believe that there is no God.
Oh, what are you exactly?
See, I was Christian until 2 years back, but let's just say my desire to learn more about God got hamstrung. So I had to push past identifying as any one religion to understand what was really going on with just existence.
That could be an interesting conversation with Todd, with your views on religion. You seem like you have complex views on it and your own ideas of God or what God meant to be or should be or anything. I don't know.
Well, I have my own answer to the issue with omnipotence, omnipresence, and limiting factors.
Yeah. So, you want to ask me any questions?
Okay, so your Twitter handle says that you're the Black Jordan B. Peterson.
Oh, that was kind of a joke. That started a long time ago.
Okay.
It just sort of just like someone asked me to define something, and I sort of just like, what do you mean by this? Oh, basically this says, do you have any friends? And I'd be like, what do you mean by friend? And went on. And someone called me Jordan Black Peterson. And yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, it's just a joke.
I see. They were referencing the fact that you would deconstruct the question itself to figure out what the answer they wanted to hear was.
No. It was more funny than that. It's just I just sort of went incoherent rambling and just yeah, that's the story behind that. That's why I put Black JVP on there.
Okay.
Just joke. Nothing too serious.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on this whole culture war thing?
Cultural war. Well, right now we're seeing a decay in a lot of things. We're seeing a decay in entertainment. We're experiencing the polarization of our society. Just there's many multiple explanations, economic, social, philosophical. I just take the view that the culture wars is just a part of a grander scheme. Like it's just small potatoes, what's going on outside the world. So I'm more primarily concerned what's been going on in geopolitics, particularly, and studying been studying governments overall.
Hmm.
And I started as a libertarian, slowly evolved to something else entirely. That's my story.
Okay. So are you more akin to like a traditionalist conservative or moderate?
Call me a traditionalist
Okay.
on some level. I don't know. I think we got to end this interview short now.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sorry.
was nice talking to you.
It was nice talking to you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.